Okay, well, my name is Graham Jenkins.
My name is Timothy Berry.
Alex Morrow.
Chris Hungalitis.
This is the military transition. I had the chance to work out and talk with Alex Morrow, an Army officer turned fitness professional. Alex found his passion while still serving and is moving on to fitness as a full-time job. After fixing my form, we talked about the challenges of a saturated job market, but also some useful advice on how to make the transition work for you.
Alex Morrow, MI, rock climbing team. Did Intel stuff for 6 years in the Army, and then ended up with the best job in the world at the physical fitness school teaching the Master Fitness Trainer course. This one's super typical, but being a platoon leader, I think everybody loves that time. Still have relationships with all those soldiers. That was absolutely fantastic. Tough call whether I enjoyed that more or less than my time as an instructor. It's pretty unbelievable to teach the Master Fitness Trainer course. There's only one slot for an officer there. I feel super lucky. And we got to travel all over the place, Alaska, Hawaii, Germany, all over, so pretty incredible experience. I considered transition twice. I got close to leaving the Army about 3 years ago now. I think a lot of people in our year group have had a relatively similar experience here. Well, we were at school, everybody expected to deploy right away, deploy frequently, see combat, things like that. My entire first assignment at Fort Carson, we did not deploy at all. So when I was at career course, I looked at the patch chart, figured out who was deploying. Fort Drum was not my optimal location necessarily, but 1st Brigade 10th Mountain was slated to deploy almost immediately after I finished career course, so I asked to go there. They said yes. I was told before I got there that I should just put my stuff in storage. We were going to deploy right away. Don't even worry about getting a house. And in the 2 weeks I spent transitioning to Fort Drum, that deployment got canceled. It went to 1st SFAB. That's great, good mission. I know that's what they're for. 1st Brigade switched to AFRICOM RAF. I raised my hand to try and go to Cameroon or Nigeria or something. It looked like that was going to happen. It ultimately did not. So I ended up doing the exact same intel kind of work I'd been doing from a very similar looking skiff, just in a different place, and not deploying. So that was the first time I considered getting out. Almost did. The Army's good at dangling carrots to keep you to stay in. That's where the opportunity to go to the fitness school came up, and I could not pass that up. So I gave the Army a couple extra years doing this awesome gig. Loved it, but might have been a mistake on the Army's end, because now I just want to keep doing this kind of work, and there's no way to keep doing that in uniform. I didn't leave the Army because I didn't like the Army. I enjoyed my time in it. I thought the work I did meant something, liked the people I worked with. Yeah, I'm not bitter about it, and I wouldn't have changed like when I transitioned. I think it was the right choice, but it's part of the journey. Two-part answer to that one. It would have been very different at Fort Drum. I had a couple buddies get out at the exact same time as me. Very different in terms of how the unit viewed the transition and how much support they offered. 10th Mountain, they don't really approve skill bridge internships for officers ever. They're gonna work you to the last day they have you. Understood, like you signed a contract, that's fine. Being in TRADOC, being at the fitness school, I got a lot more support in terms of letting me do transition-oriented things. So right now, I haven't been in uniform for weeks, pushing months now, and that's because I've been on a skill bridge internship, working in the field I want to end up in, learning the lay of the land, networking in the field, and that's been absolutely fantastic. I don't think that opportunity is afforded to everyone, but if people get that chance, they absolutely should pursue it. SkillBridge is a great tool, but it's just one tool. I would tell people networking is key, and be aggressive about it. Don't be passive and hoping you find somebody who knows what you're looking for. Just start reaching out to people that are doing the kind of work you want to do, even if you don't know them at all. If you can have somebody introduce you, that's great, that makes it a lot easier, but that's not necessary. It's cheesy, they talk about it in SFL TAP and things like that, but LinkedIn is actually really powerful. I tell people this all the time, but the algorithm on LinkedIn is completely different than Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or anything like that. most notably because if somebody interacts with a post you made on LinkedIn, now everybody they're connected to sees it. So all you have to do is get like 1 or 2 messages out there that connect with people and resonate, and they want to interact with it or comment on it or share it, and now all of a sudden you're leading dialogue in the field you're trying to be in. And that's a great way to start building relationships in the industry you're trying to move into. It's just an outrageously good, really easy to set up opportunity. I think it's certainly fine to do one of the pre-approved SkillBridge internships, the ones that are already in the system, the company's already been vetted. But if you're willing to put in the work and wait for the paperwork and go through the annoying bureaucratic processes, you can set up any internship you want. And since you're not allowed to receive any kind of compensation from the company you're working with, the Army's going to keep paying you. It's so easy to approach your dream organization and say, hey, I would like to work with you. You can't pay me. Is that okay? Like, who's going to say no to that, right? So like, get the paperwork started, figure out who you want to sponsor you. You can go work anywhere you want. I'm on my SkillBridge internship. I'm working remotely. I answer emails. I work whenever I need to. I have a lot of flexibility in my schedule. You won't have as easy access to me once transition leave actually starts, because I'll be somewhere in the mountains, sleeping in my car, not doing any of this kind of stuff, taking a couple weeks to really disconnect. My Instagram page is Mops and Mows. We talked about this earlier, but that's the concept of measures of performance versus measures of effectiveness, straight out of Joint Doctrine for the doctrine nerds. But really evaluating whether the tasks we're focusing on are the ones that will actually get us closer to the end state we're looking for. And that's the theme in most of what I do. Definitely a theme in the fitness stuff I'm trying to get messages out about, but just as true in every other space. You have to take a step back and figure out, I might be accomplishing this mission exactly as they want me to, but is it actually producing the outcomes we want? And certainly ramifications in fitness about whether or not you need to crush yourself until you're a sweaty puddle on the ground every workout you do, and whether or not that's actually going to make you fitter, but just as important for organizational leadership and everything our community is getting involved in. I certainly have a bias coming from a background of physical fitness and the whole Army Holistic Health and Fitness program, but I think we can make a huge impact on outcomes like retention, readiness, performance, and then people just enjoying their time in the Army and not being disabled afterwards if we can change the fitness culture of the force. If we can focus a little bit less on suffering for the sake of suffering and more on what kind of things actually make people fitter and healthier, I think that's going to be a long-term change. It's going to require some really high-level engagement across the Army. And I know you wouldn't expect somebody to care so much about Army fitness culture as they're leaving the Army, but I think it's a great place. People say the military is not a social experiment, but it absolutely is a social experiment. We do a lot of things for the first time in the military, and this is a place where we can lead efforts nationwide. In the health and fitness space, for sure, it's a tough industry to break into, and it's not known for people making a lot of money. Any field where there's a lot of people that want to do the work and not as many opportunities, they don't have to pay as much to get good people. So it's a challenge to make money, but it's a really exciting space to be involved in right now. I'm starting out doing tactical-oriented work. Initially, I'll be working for the Army as a civilian. Long term, I would like to get into the policy side of it from a public health perspective. I don't know how long that'll take. I'll definitely be pursuing grad school somewhere between now and then. But yeah, long term, I would like to be involved in essentially fitness as public health. I think people in the military, especially people who went to the academy, know how foundational staying fit and taking care of your physical health is to your mental health and your productivity at work. Helping get the rest of our society to understand that and invest in it is where I want to take this whole thing. With the mentality of shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll end up in the stars. I have some long shot things I'll totally try for. I mean, at the top of that list is President's Council on Physical Fitness. I think high-level leadership investment is going to be necessary to change the culture that we have right now. One of the most problematic trends I've seen recently is public schools cutting recess and gym and arts and music to try and improve standardized test scores in STEM. Even though that research has been done, keeping kids physically active will improve their test scores and their mental and physical health. It's not a zero-sum game. You don't have to cut one to get better at the other. I think influencing stuff like that from the policy end of the spectrum at a really high level is going to be vital. I do get a lot of emails and messages from people asking how can they come teach at the physical fitness school in the Army, and that one's tough. There's very few slots. A lot of people want them. There's literally only one officer position and only a handful of NCO positions. So I can't give people a lot of advice on that. But as far as getting into health and fitness work after the Army, I think two real pieces. One, certifications aren't that valuable. You won't necessarily learn a ton through the process, but they do get your foot in the door. So figure out what type of work you want to do and figure out what the industry standard certification is. For strength and conditioning, that's CSCS from NSCA, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. So I had to study for that and get that. That was important. But once you're actually in the door, people can learn more about you in a conversation than they ever will from a certification on your resume. So starting to just build relationships and have conversations is going to be the most important thing. I bet that holds true for pretty much any industry, but in the human performance space, it's absolutely critical that you start to develop your philosophy, and that only happens by talking to other people that have done it for longer. Everybody I've talked to who's transitioning had a similar combination, but I think it's a blend of excitement and stress, or excitement and anxiety. There's certainly a fear element. I made myself a promise as a lieutenant that I would not stay in the Army just because I was afraid to get out. That can be easy to do. It's very predictable. You're not going to get laid off. You understand the language. You know where you're going. You have a network. So leaving that stuff behind is definitely stressful, and I think that's part of what everybody goes through when they decide whether to stay or whether to go, is dealing with that. But there's an equal amount of excitement when you start to realize like how big the rest of the world is and how many opportunities are out there. So yeah, mostly those two, excitement and fear. I thought I could make a bigger difference.